Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off, because today I'll be reviewing Lost Ruins of Arnak from Czech Games Edition. Is this an excellent mashup of worker placement and deck building, or do I simply wish this game design would get lost? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, and welcome back to the Duct Tape Studios. I happen to be your host here at the Gaming Gang channel, and as I mentioned in the open, I'm going to be reviewing Lost Ruins of Arnak in just a moment. First, I do want to remind you, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you subscribe, ding that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this, it'll also tell you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday through Thursday nights right here on YouTube. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit the home website, thegaminggang.com, for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I'm diving into Lost Ruins of Arnak, which, as I mentioned previously, is from Czech Games Edition, otherwise known as CGE. It's designed by Elwin and Min, with artwork provided by Yuri Kus, Andrzej Hrdina, Jacob Politzer, Fradezek Sadocek, and Milan Vavion, or Vavron. I really apologize for messing up all of those names, but I do like to give credit to the folks behind the game designs and artwork. Lost Ruins of Arnak is for 1 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, plays in about 30 minutes per player. It does carry an MSRP of $59.95. Without further ado, let's swing on over to the other camera here. I kind of have Lost Ruins of Arnak set up. This board does take up a lot of space, so when I take a tour and show you the various aspects of the game, I am actually going to be moving this board up a bit because you're not seeing everything in this shot. First thing I will mention, though, is the fine folks over at Czech Games Edition were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my opinion and thoughts on this game. It's important for you to know that. That said, the game is essentially an exploration game. So you are searching for the Lost Ruins of Arnak, but you're going to discover other ruins as well. So you're going to want to put on your fedora and grab your bullwhip, or put on a pair of short shorts and grab a couple of 45 automatics, because you are going to be exploring these lost ruins. As I mentioned, there is a combination of deck building and worker placement. I'm going to explain that as well. I am going to point out this is not a complete how to play, simply because there's a lot going on in this design. I am trying to shorten my review times up, because I do know that I tend to babble on sometimes. And there are some really spectacular how to play videos that are already out there. So we're going to kind of tour around a little bit, and I'm going to explain what's going on with these different components. And speaking of the components, they are fantastic quality. Everything about this, outside of one thing, is super top-notch, because we actually have physical plastic items here. So we've got, these are some of the resources that we've got. We've got gems. We have these arrowheads. We have these tablets, which the tablets even have little engravings on the plastic as well. We've got nice, thick cardstock for all of the different tokens as well as the player boards. In fact, I'll show you. This is a player board here that I've kind of got set up a little bit. But as you can see, it's dual-sided and nice and thick. And the cool thing about this is not only do we have the one board for playing Lost Ruins of Arnak, this is dual-sided as well. There's a second board on the back that changes the gameplay up a little bit as well. Plus, there's even solitaire play. So there is loads of gameplay that is packed into the box of Lost Ruins of Arnak. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll even show you the rules real quick. The rules are a little longer than some people are used to for some games. And I do want to point out there's loads and loads of images throughout. Everything is just really, really nicely presented. Hopefully everything's staying in focus here because I do have the ye old Panasonic on autofocus today. So we've got walking through everything. Everything's crystal clear once you read the rules. I will mention there were a couple of members of the gang. The first time we played, they were kind of thrown off by some of the gameplay elements, and they didn't like this game starting off. So I got to also point out, it's taken me a bit longer than I wanted to get this review out as well, mainly because of COVID-19. We're not able to get a full group of 4 players together very often. And I really did want to make sure that I played this with a full complement of 4 players enough times before I sent out my review. All right, so we'll tour around. I'm going to pull this down a little bit. So all the players are going to start off with their deck of cards. So we've got these fear cards, which are actually bad because this is a deck builder. These are cards that are going to gum up the works. But there's ways that we're going to end up getting these cards, and they do serve a purpose. They are good for 1 foot movement point, but they're also -1 victory point at the end of the game for each of these that you have in your deck. We also have 4 very basic exploration cards as well. We've got 2 automobile, we have 2 boat. There are actually 4 modes of transportation. There's foot, which we just saw here. We've got automobile, we've got boat, and we have airplane as well. So we have aircraft. So to start off, you're going to start your round by taking 5 cards. That's going to make up your hand. So to start off with, you're only going to have 1 card sitting in your deck. So up top here, we've got fear cards because we're going to be getting more fear cards as we play. Hopefully not too many. And there are ways for you to call your deck. In this game, it's called exiling a card. But we also have artifacts and we have items. These are the cards that we are going to purchase to add to our decks of cards. So we've got artifacts in this deck here. We have items in this deck here. Interestingly enough, as this game progresses, we will actually go round by round. We're going to move this totem here, and we're going to end up having more artifacts than items. So as we'll play along, so in the first round, we're only going to have 1 artifact available, and then we've got these items. But come, say, the 3rd round, we're going to actually have 3 artifacts and 3 items. I thought that was really interesting how things change. As far as these cards go, they're going to tell you what do they do. First of all, down here, it's going to tell us what is the cost. What's the cost for me to get this card? This is 2 coins. This is 2 compasses, 3 coins, 1 coin. And as you're going to play through the game, you're going to be able to take actions, and the different actions are going to allow you to do different things. This does play asymmetrical, so each player's turn is not going to be the same as other players' turns as you're playing. And personally, I thought that was awesome as well. I really like that. So I'm going to move this board up because I'm going to show you where we're really going to focus a lot And we're going to actually be focusing a lot on the various different ruins that are out there that we're going to explore. So let's do it like so. There we go. So we can kind of get the bottom of the board in there. Now, this section here, this board is actually folded in half. So normally, this is also going to keep our resources, a lot of our tokens, our gold, our compasses, our gems, arrowheads, as well as our tablets. These are all resources that we use to purchase things, to do different things. We have your player board. So this is where you're going to keep your deck. You've got a couple of archaeologists, these big chunky meeples. I know they were kind of lost sitting on the red tents here. We can also get additional helpers, some assistants that we can utilize. Those are located up here. And as we discover various different temples, or I should say ruins, they're not always temples, we're going to actually get these totems here, which will give us something immediately. Plus, we can spend them to actually perform a special free action once we've received these. Now, when you spend them, they're actually going to deduct these victory points that you could have at the end of the game. Everything is all about victory points in this game. There are a multitude of ways for you to be able to get the victory points, but at the end of the day, it is victory points alone. So you're going to have on your turn, you're going to have different actions that you can perform, and going out to the various different sites is where you're going to use your archaeologists. So here we've got all the various different sites. These have been undiscovered. These had been discovered down here. So to send an archaeologist to any of these locations, if I'm the first person to go to one of these locations, I would simply need to spend a card that has a footprint on it, a boot. So it is foot movement there. And you're going to utilize your cards throughout your round. So on your turn, you can dig at a site. So essentially, these are discovered sites. So I can send my archaeologists to these areas to get the reward. So for an example, if I send somebody here, it's 2 gold, 2 compasses. If I go here, I'm going to get 2 tablets. Here I get an arrowhead. And if I go here, I actually discard a card from my hand to get a gem. So this kind of gives you an idea of the value of these items. So the tablets are more valuable than the gold. The compasses are more valuable than the gold. So just kind of give you an idea as well. Something else you're going to be doing is you are going to be researching. Now, if you see up here, I'll push this down a little bit. We have a book and we have a magnifying glass. And this is another way that we will spend our points, or spend our resources, I should say, to get victory points. And we have one of each of these that we're going to try to move up. Now, as I mentioned before, I've got this folded in half. This section actually goes onto the bottom of this board. So as you can see here, this would correspond with here. So for me to take my magnifying glass to move to this location, I would have to spend a compass as well as an arrowhead. But then I would get a gold coin. If I move this here, still the same cost, but I would get to recruit an assistant and be able to use an assistant. And these assistants actually have 2 sides. They've got a gold side, which gives you better things, or we've got just the regular side here as well. So for an example, if I have this assistant, one of my actions could be to use this assistant as a free action, and I could either get an airplane movement or I could get a gold coin. If I use my assistant, I have to do that during my turn. At the end of the turn, I will refresh them so I can use them again on the next turn. As you move up this section here, you're going to unlock special tokens that you'll get. So for an example, if I were to spend a gem and go here, I will be able to add a card. If I were to go here, I would actually be able to discard a card, or I should say exile a card, burn a card out of my deck when I would do that as well. You can never have your book, your journal, your notes further along than your magnifying glass. The magnifying glass has to be furthest along. You'll also notice we've got these numbers running along the sides here. That also counts for victory points at the end of the game. So you can end up, so for an example, if I were like here and there, and it's kind of funny because we have different paths you can take as you're going up through here, then this would be worth 6 victory points. That would be worth 16 victory points. Now, moving further up the track, once we get to this point here, we've got all these little areas here for each of the colors, because it's up to 4 players, to put their magnifying glass. So I know I'm going to get 23 victory points, but then I can also get more research. So I can buy these tiles. So if I wanted to buy these tiles here, I could get a coin and 2 tablets, and that would get me one of these tiles. Or I could spend these 2 to get one of these, or I can spend all 3 to get one of these. And as you see, we've got 2, 6, and 11 victory points there as well. So during your turn, you can dig at a site. As an example here, I would have to spend one of my movements. Let's see what we got. Let's spend the fear card, right? We'll use the fear card. I can move my archaeologist right over there, and that would get me 2 coins. So those, I would get 2 coins. That's my action. Next player, they do their thing. Next player does their thing. Back to me. Let's say I'm playing 3 or 4 players, right? So you can dig at a site, and then you get whatever the effect is. You can discover a new site. So to discover a new site, you're going to have to pay what's in this section here. So here I would need to have 3 compasses and also an automobile movement. Okay, so the one thing I do want to point out too is that I can use an aircraft as an automobile. I can use an automobile as the foot movement. I can use a boat as foot movement. This is the lowest commodity as far as movement goes. Aircraft are the highest. Aircraft takes you basically anywhere. So if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to discover a new site, this is one of the really cool things about the game. So I would be sending my archaeologist there. Now I'm going to score this token here. So this is worth 3 victory points at the end of the game. I'm going to keep that. Usually you're going to keep stuff down here, but we do also have these really nice little player aids that not only tells you what you can do on your turn, but it also tells you, okay, what do these icons mean on the cards? And the iconography is very clear. There's really nothing that is going to make you scratch your head, anything like that. So once I go here, I'm going to take that. Then, because it's this area here, I'm going to take one of these lower sites. I'm going to flip it on over. I'm going to place that here. And then it's going to show me, okay, what do I get for having discovered this? So it's going to tell me I'm going to have to take a fear card. I'm also going to get a gem and a compass. But I also have to take a guardian, a monster that is actually guarding this location. And as an example, here we have a giant, almost like a Mayan or Aztec snake sort of thing. The guardians make the game a little bit more difficult, but they're not super hard to get rid of. But before you start going and exploring these other areas, you do want to make sure that you've gathered up some different items because in different resources so you can pay off to get rid of these guardians. So to get rid of the guardian, I would need to spend the compass, a gold coin, and an arrowhead. So overcoming a guardian is another action. So I can't do that on the same turn that I went and discovered a new site. But that's okay. I still would have time to be able to try to gather up these other resources as well to overcome the guardian. I can buy an item. So basically, I'm buying a card from up top that I showed you before. I'll move this back. I'd be able to buy one of these cards that are sitting out here. So I can buy an item. I can buy an artifact. Now, one of the cool aspects of this too is if I buy an item, that item is actually going to go onto the bottom of my draw pile. Most deck building games, when you purchase a card to add to your deck, it goes into your discard. At least here with Ruins of Arnak, Lost Ruins of Arnak, you actually will be using that card pretty quickly. So that was one of the aspects that I thought was pretty cool. Now with the artifact, when you buy an artifact, you're going to be able to get these items here. So I could either use the sundial to get 2 tablets, or I could pass, which would end my turn, and gain a gem. I get to do this automatically. Once this goes into my deck, then I have to spend a tablet to be able to utilize this as well. So this also will give you movement. So usually with these cards, I shouldn't say usually, all of these cards have some sort of movement factor and then something else that card does. One of the things about Lost Ruins of Arnak that I think is really, really nicely done is all this art is original artwork where you aren't going to see it multiple times. So let me pull this up here. Let's hope we get, yeah, of course, the autofocus isn't going to work on that. There we go. Just kind of give you a look at some of these. Binoculars, trowel, gold pan, flash, rough map. Yeah, this autofocus on this Panasonic has got a lot to be desired, folks. Really does. Doesn't pick up too well once I kind of move around a little bit. Love the artwork. The artwork on this is just super cool. The same with the Guardians, same with the various different locations as well. So kind of give you an idea of some of these temples. Share this with you. And the artwork's just all really cool. This artwork is really, really well done. Got the monsters as well. The Guardians. Whoops, there's a bunch of them go flying. None of this is duplicated. Every one of these is going to be different. Giant spider. One aspect about the Guardians as well is once you've defeated them, they are worth 5 victory points, and you can actually spend them to receive a special bonus. So I could spend this once to get an automobile, and then I'm going to flip that over to the other side as part of my collection of items that I've got to this point. Love that. In fact, this is so cool that even like these little tablets here, these little bonus victory point items here have different artwork. Sure, there's a little bit of duplication with these, but I thought that was pretty wild because you figure most game companies, they would have just, there's a dozen of these, they'd have just created one piece of art for that, and then that would have been it. That'd have been the end of the story, moving along. So anyway, so we can play a card. That's another action that we can utilize. We can simply play a card, because if a card doesn't have a lightning bolt on it, which means it's a free action, which you can kind of combine things, then you have to use an action to play the card. Once again, you can research, so you can spend stuff to move up on this research track as well. And then the final thing you can do is you can pass. And when you pass, that basically means your game is going to come, or I should say your turn is going to come to an end. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to go through each round. You're going to use up as many actions as you possibly can. Once that's over with, then you're going to move on to the next round. Once again, you're going to move this along. You're going to change out the ratio, basically, of the artifacts to items. And you're going to continue on for 5 rounds. Once you've finished the 5th round, you're going to tally up all your victory points. So you've got victory points from cards. You've got victory points from the totems here. We've got victory points from the research. We've got victory points for these tiles as well. We've got victory points for the guardians. I mean, there's loads and loads of different victory points that you can score, and whoever's got the most victory points at the end of the game is the winner. And that, in essence, is Lost Ruins of Arnak. So let me swing on over to the other camera. I will share my final thoughts and give this a review score. See that? Even without going through like every tiny aspect of the game, we are still at about the 27-minute mark. So just imagine if I did a complete how to play. I have to say, I'm a sucker for good deck building games. Always have been, always will be. I like worker placement. Depends on what kind of worker placement game it is, but I essentially like worker placement games. I love Lost Ruins of Arnak. I really, really do. I think that this is a blast. And it's funny because, as I mentioned earlier, we first tried to play this for, our first time out, and there were we had 4 players that game, and a couple of them were like, I said, okay. I brought in somebody else to replace 2 of them, and the next time we played with 4 players was completely different because these other players picked up on it. And I will point out, you can encounter some analysis paralysis in this game, especially if you're sitting there and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to put a worker in that one spot. That's where I'm going. Yeah, that's where I plan. Ah, crap. They just went there and blocked it off for me. Now I can't get there. It happens. Doesn't happen a lot because there's a lot of stuff you could be doing during your turn. Another aspect of this I think is kind of cool is most of the time in worker placement games, everybody's like rushing to get their workers out. Not so much in this game. You might want to wait a bit to put your archaeologists out there because you want to gather up the gear. You want to gather up those resources. You want to maybe even, do a little research, score some victory points as well before you start dropping off your archaeologists. I like that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of decision making that goes into you playing this game, and I always love that. Granted, there's really no, take that to the game other than, you put a worker on a spot maybe somebody else was hoping to go to. Oh, well. But there's no real confrontation in the game either. I gotta say, even though we're not seeing mechanics that are like, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary. In fact, funny enough, we just saw and I just reviewed another game, which is a mashup of worker placement and deck building, Dune Imperium from Direwolf Digital. And I really enjoyed that as well. I like this even a little more. I love the theme. I think the theme is really, really well done. Artwork is great. Everything pops. Component quality is fantastic, except for the cards. I would have liked to have seen a little more, maybe like a linen finish on the cards. These cards will get beat up with repeated play. So, of course, you do want to sleeve these. But they're not terrible. The component, I mean, the card stock on the cards isn't terrible. Just would have liked to have seen a little bit better. But what do I want for $60? Right? It's got a $59.95 price tag, and it is jam-packed with goodness. I was blown away. Now, I know Czech Games Edition every year tends to come out with a bigger box, kind of a more of an epic game towards the end of the year, around the holidays, or at least have it out for the holidays. And this, I got to say, this is fantastic. I really, really enjoyed Lost Ruins of Arnak, and so did the gang once they wrapped their heads around what they were trying to do, and that it was, don't focus on one thing, because you got to kind of spread yourself out to score those victory points, and don't just be passing in a turn because you've put your 2 archaeologists out there. You could still be doing a lot of other stuff. Once that clicked, everybody got it. Everybody really enjoyed it as well. On a scale of 1 to 10, I have got to say, Lost Ruins of Arnak is a 10 out of 10. It is that good. Like I said, these mechanics, nothing revolutionary, but the way they've been meshed together, fantastic. Run, don't walk to your game store to pick this up. This is one of my favorite games of 2020, and we are in the last week of 2020. That tells you just how good this is. All right, that's it for this time out. Once again, do want to remind you, if you like this video, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you subscribe, ding that bell, because it will not only let you know when I upload reviews such as this, it'll also tell you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday through Thursday nights right here on YouTube, as I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, as I wrap up all of my videos during this never-ending pandemic, I really do hope all of you out there are being smart and staying safe. Oh, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, if you'd like to subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel, by all means, click right here. And if you'd like to check out one of our recent live streams, click right up top. And if you want to roll the dice and see what the algorithm for YouTube recommends, click right here. And of course, thank you once again for watching. And gang, please stay safe and wear a mask.